Hello everyone and welcome to DC Central, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing and doing our very first double review for our return to the Arrowverse for this season, and that is of course reviewing Supergirl 501, otherwise known as Event Horizon, and Batwoman 101 aka Pilot. So let's discuss. So Super Season is officially here. We have officially arrived at the arrival of the new DC TV season, and I could not be more excited. This is a really great time for us, and it's a great time for this channel because this channel will be launching back up, and you know, the content will be flowing out of this channel like it once was. So if you missed my video yesterday where I broke down the new schedule and how I'm going to be doing things on this channel, this is my first double review. So basically, because of the way the CW has decided to schedule the shows this season, it's not particularly friendly to a British-based DC TV YouTuber like myself, who doesn't do YouTube as a full-time job. So because of that, I'm going to be doing double reviews. So in this particular video, I'm going to be reviewing both the latest episode of Supergirl and the latest episode of Batwoman in the same video. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how it goes, you can expect a video where I'll be reviewing the new episode of The Flash and also the new episode of Arrow. So with that in mind and with all that cleared up, let's jump into the review for Supergirl 501, otherwise entitled Event Horizon. So Supergirl 501 Event Horizon I was looking forward to because Supergirl ended really strongly last season. Season 4 of Supergirl I thought was very good overall, had a weak start but ended very strongly, and I look back on Season 4 very positively overall, and I was really hoping that Season 5 would be able to maintain that momentum that it garnered from Season 4. So first off, let's talk about that new suit. Obviously, this is the first time in the history of Supergirl that Kara has gotten a new suit, and I have to say, it looked great in live action. I mean, it looked awesome in the photos, it looked great in the trailer, but it looks really good when we actually get it in the episode. The pants are a great addition, they do look great. It reminds me very much of the Injustice 2 Supergirl suit, which is a game I love, and I love her suit design in that game, and I feel like this is a really good reflection of that. Also, Melissa Benoist has changed her hairstyle this season. She now has bangs, which look really good as well. I mean, Melissa always looks stunning, of course, but she just looks really good here, and it's a really good look for Kara overall. So I love the new suit, it's great. I like the way it kind of materializes, you know, it's kind of nanotech, which Brainy designed for her. I think it's kind of funny how they put the design in the glasses, so as soon as she rips off the glasses, it kind of just comes up. It's very typical comic booky, but I really enjoy that. And it just kind of, again, adds a lot more character to it, which I personally enjoy. Now, going into like the stories of this episode, what I really liked about it is that this particular episode did a really good job, probably the best job Supergirl has ever done in its premieres, of setting up and planting the seeds for each story, or at least each major story going forward for the rest of the season. The only one that didn't really get played about with was the story with Leviathan, which was teased in the season finale of season 4. Leviathan isn't touched on in this episode at all. But I assume that will come in the next couple of episodes. But other than Leviathan, we actually got a lot of really cool stuff here, like Lena, who is still holding a grudge against Kara. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on there, especially with Kara kind of stuck in a difficult position. We get a lot of good moments between Lena and Kara in this episode. Also, Catco seems to be in a very interesting position this season because it has now been purchased by a new character, Rhea Rojas, who I will get to in a little bit. This Catco has now been purchased by Andrea as essentially a sabotage by Lena. So that's really fun. And what they're trying to do with that, I really enjoy. Also, Kelly actually has quite an interesting role because this character of Andrea Rojas has her own company, and that is a company now Kelly works for. So I was curious as to how Kelly was going to be useful and actually relevant to this season, given the fact that he upped her to a series regular, and I guess this is how that's going to happen. She's going to be working for the rival company in a sense, but being kind of, you know, on both sides in that way. So I think the stories were just really good at being planted overall. I feel like, you know, the whole story with Lena, and that kind of bleeds into the technology angle. Technology is kind of the main theme of this season, and you could really see that coming through here, and how Lena is trying to use technology to take down Supergirl and take down Kara, I think is really fun. Also, Andrea coming in, purchasing Catco, kind of trying to ruin Catco and turn it into a clickbait tabloid, I think is a very interesting story and a very relevant story to today. And I really like how Kara is fighting back with that. Also, James is fighting back with that. I mean, I understand this is kind of how James is being written out of the show, because we know Mehcad Brooks is leaving this season. So I imagine this is how James is going to get written out of the show. I mean, he quits his job at the end of this episode, so I guess that's kind of how they're going to do that. And again, actually putting Kelly in a point of relevance actually surprised me. I didn't expect them to kind of put her in such a central position, but have her working for Andrea Rojas, I think is a nice little play. Now, speaking of those new characters, Rhea Rojas I thought was interesting. She's not what I expected her to be. I think I read, based on the articles, that she's going to be a bit more of a heroic character. I don't know if that's going to change or if it has changed. But Rhea Rojas was kind of horrible in this episode. Not in the horrible in the sense of how she was written or how she was acted. She's just a pretty horrible character. The way she comes in, she takes over Catco. She doesn't really have much regard for how Catco has been ran for all these years. She's very much interested in changing it. And in a way, it's kind of interesting because you can see where she's coming from. In today's society, in today's world, you can kind of understand that, she wants to benefit from that. But it kind of becomes more conspicuous when you realize that she is essentially just a pawn in Lena's game. So she's going to be trying to do that, but at the end of the day, Lena's kind of just pulling her strings, and I wonder if that's how Andrea will change and how she'll kind of become more heroic. Maybe she'll realize that, and then she'll team up with Kara to take down Lena towards the end of the season if she becomes kind of a villain-esque character. I'm not too sure. But she also introduces William Day, who's a British journalist. He is being described as a foil for Kara. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a love interest by the end of this season. Wouldn't surprise me at all, because they start off very much at odds in this episode. They don't like each other. I think this William Day character doesn't particularly have much regard for Kara and her journalism work, but I'm pretty sure that's going to change. I could just see the seeds being planted right now. This is going to be a love interest character. And I praised Supergirl last season for not having a love interest character for the first time, but I feel like we're going to be getting that this season as well. It depends. I mean, Mon-El could come back this season in the 100th episode, but besides that, I could definitely see actually this being the love interest character for Kara this season. Also, Jean's brother shows up in this episode. Obviously, we saw him in the Season 4 finale. The Monitor brought him here. Nice to see him. Again, that's a big seed that's being planted here. I believe the next episode is actually about that, so we'll get to see a bit more about that. And I'm curious how much he's actually going to be in this season, or if it's more of a crisis tease. We'll have to wait and see. And the villain of this episode, Midnight, who's kind of linked to Jean's brother, she was a bit bad. I mean, she didn't really do much. She kind of just comes up, has these weird powers, has to scream every time, which I found very annoying. But they kind of take her down like that, so it's not really a problem. But overall, I thought this was actually a really good start. I really enjoyed how the seeds were planted for the entire season. I like the characters and how they, each character really got ample screen time in this episode, and I really like that. Each character was really able to develop and grow and just show how each one has flourished since Season 4, and I really, really appreciated that. So I think this is definitely a good start. It's definitely maintained its momentum from the Season 4 finale, so let's just hope it can carry that on for the season going forward. Now, moving over to Batwoman, the pilot episode for Batwoman. This is, of course, the new show joining the Arrowverse. Obviously, I have had a lot to say about this show ever since it was announced, to the casting and things like that. But let's just forget all of that, and let's just talk about this episode as it is. So, Ruby Rose. The way I describe Ruby Rose in this episode is inconsistent. There are actually times within this episode where I felt Ruby Rose actually was very good. But there were also other times where I felt like her performance was very weak, and I feel like a lot of it comes down to if she's playing the character of Kate as cocky and sarcastic and confident, she comes across very well. But if she's trying to do some of the more emotional beats, which she has to do in this episode, that's where her acting range starts to show. She can't quite pull off the emotion of it. There's a particular scene that she has with her father in this episode, which she's trying to get very angry, and I just didn't buy it at all. So I feel like Ruby, she wasn't terrible, but she definitely wasn't great. Again, inconsistent is the word I describe, because again, there are some parts of her acting in this episode I found very good, very strong, but there are other parts I found very weak. And to be honest, I'm not too worried about it, because I've said this many times, but I feel like, I would describe Stephen Amell as being inconsistent in Season 1 of Arrow, especially in the early episodes. So, this is literally Ruby Rose's first leading role, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt for now and allow her to grow with the show. Now, the other characters who were introduced, I'm just going to briefly run through a few of them. The character of Sophie, who is kind of Kate's love interest from the past. I really like her, actually. She's very likable. She works for Kate's father. I really like her. She seems really likable. Luke Fox, who is, I believe, the son of Lucius Fox. I guess he's going to be the techie character of the show. He seems very fun, very likable. I like the actor who plays him. He's very good on social media. Jacob Kane, who's played by Doug Ray Scott. He was a bit dodgy in this episode. I didn't really like him all that much. I found his acting quite subpar. So we'll have to see how that goes. But then also the character of Mary was also a nice addition. I really liked her. That's kind of like Kate's sister-in-law. I really liked her. She was cool. The action in this episode, pretty good. I think it's not amazing. It's not quite up there with some of the other shows. It's not quite up there with Arrow. But it's decent enough. I think it's clear what's going on most of the time. There are a couple of shots that are a bit dodgy, but for the most part, it's okay. I could definitely see this improving over time. I think it'd be useful for them to maybe go over to Arrow and get James Bamford to come over and work with them for a bit, because he's phenomenal at action. But we'll have to see if that can continue and grow. But it is a nice setup. I think it's a good setup for the show. It's a good setup for the season. I think that a lot of it does play nicely. Again, there are some parts of it I don't like. But I feel like it's a nice setup overall. Like, the villain of this episode, I really liked. I really liked the villain of this season. Like, the villain is Mad Alice, who is Kate's long-lost sister. She's great. I actually love Rachel Skarsten, who plays her. She's fantastic in this role. Really good. She really sold it. Like, I really bought her as a villain. I liked her a lot. She was definitely the standout of this episode for sure. Also, I like Gotham in this. I like how they've kind of portrayed Gotham. We saw a bit of it in the Elseworlds crossover, but we get to see a bit more here. I do like Gotham. It's not like super dark, but it's dark enough to the point where it feels different from the other cities in the Arrowverse, so I appreciate that. Now, one thing I will say, my major negative for this, is they have these flashback scenes in this, and I don't know whose decision it was to stilt it the way they did. Like, if you've seen the episode, you know what I mean, but it's really, the scenes themselves are really stuttered, and it's just a bizarre choice. And at first, I thought maybe it was my internet connection, or it was like the version of the episode I was watching online or something, but it just was so choppy, and it wasn't my TV, it wasn't the website or anything, because the rest of the episode wasn't like that. And it's a bizarre choice. I don't know who thought that was a good idea and who cleared that, but quite frankly, it was awful. I hated it. It was honestly painful to watch because of how bad it was. But other than those flashbacks, there wasn't anything absurdly bad about this. This wasn't as bad as I feared it was going to be. Hopefully that's just because I really went in with really low expectations, but, you know, this wasn't as bad as I feared. I'm definitely going to stick around next week and watch the next episode, and we'll see how the season goes, so not a bad start for sure. So there you have it, there's my reviews of Supergirl 501 and Batwoman 101. Make sure to let me know your thoughts on both of these episodes in the comment section down below. What did you like about them? What didn't you like about them? Let's have a lively discussion in the comment section down below. And if you want to stay tuned to the channel on Wednesday, you can stay tuned for my review of The Flash. The Flash will be getting its own solo review this week, just because Arrow doesn't come back till next week, so Flash is on its own for this week. But either way, if you want to stay tuned for that video, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me and any more DC content just like this. And I hope to see you guys again next time.